Hey everyone, welcome to today's video. Welcome to my channel. My name is Micah and today I have my January wrap up for you. My January reading month wasn't as good as I had hoped, so there's only 3 books here. The main reason for that is I pulled a muscle in my back and I was in so much pain that I could barely move, let alone sit and read, because that was quite a difficult thing to do actually, to try and focus on something while my back was going ow, ow the entire day. So I definitely didn't read as much as I wanted to. I tend to read like a book per week. That's sort of like my goal. And I've only read 3, but I can definitely catch up. I'm already 2/3 of the way through my next book. So this week I think I'll be able to read some other books as well. So it's okay. So I have 3 books here for you. 2 of them are fantasy and 1 of them is a bit more literary, you could say. So the first book I read in 2019 is this is The Queen of Air and Darkness by Cassandra Clare. This is the 3rd and final book in the Dark Artifices series, which is set in the Shadow Hunter world. In this series, you're following Emma and Julian as the main characters, and they are 2 parabatai that are hopelessly in love with each other. And they spent the first 2 books sort of like not admitting it to each other. And then, of course, it becomes a really, really huge problem because in this world, if you're parabatai, you're not allowed to be in love. So there's a lot of issues that are being resolved here. This is probably going to be my last read in the Shadowhunter series. I am a little bit over it. I read, I think, everything so far that has come out. And with this series, all of my pet peeves in these books were just really brought to the forefront. The only reason why I still wanted to read this and see how it ended was Mark. So one of the side characters in this book is Mark Blackthorn. He's part Shadowhunter, part Fae, and he stole my heart in the 2nd book, and that was the only reason why I didn't DNF that one. So I wanted to see how he would end up in this series. So that's why I wanted to keep on reading. But one of my let's just say it's sort of like an assumption, so I'm not sure if this is how it goes, but these books very much seem to be written on a whim rather than with a plan. So it feels very much like the author has an idea and then she decides to put it in here, which to me just doesn't make for the best reading experience, because it means that there's a lot of plot twists that are just plot twists and they're just there to try and keep the plot moving, but the characters aren't necessarily inspiring all that much all the time. I feel that there's a lot of rehashing from the other series going on in this book as well. There's like a lot of like characters from the previous books that are coming up in this world again. And there's sort of like a lot of like parallels between some of the other things that have been going on in this world before. And that's sort of like, if you don't know that, then you can't really read this series either. But I feel that that's also a reason why it becomes a bit too repetitive for me. So I did still really enjoy this. I think the ending was a bit, but I still did give this like a 4, like a solid 4 stars, because I just get sucked into these and they're a bit of a guilty pleasure. But I know it has flaws, and that's why I can never ever give this 5 stars ever in my life. The 2nd book I then moved on to, because after that, I was in for something a little bit thinner and a little bit more, let's say, intelligent. And I definitely got that with The Elegance of the Hedgehog by Muriel Barberry. This is one of the best-selling books in France, and it's been translated into English. And it's one of those books that a colleague recommended to me, and it's about a 2-perspective book. One perspective you get is from Renee, and she is the concierge of a building that's pretty much occupied by rich people in the center of Paris. And the other voice you get is from like an 11, 12-year-old girl who lives in that building and who's thinking of committing suicide. And of course, somehow their worlds start to come together, because Renee, our concierge, is carrying a really big secret. And that is actually that despite the fact that she's a lowly concierge, she's very smart and educated by having read and watched and just absorbed culture by herself for a very long time. And but she's been trying to hide it because something has happened in her life that you don't find out about until very late in the book, I have to say, why she feels she has to hide it. So there's these 2 women, both of them are smart. So there's a lot of references to philosophers, cultures, paintings, movies, books thinkers, like just there's a lot going on in a very short book. Is this the easiest read per se? Not necessarily, but I really, really enjoyed myself while I was reading this, because what is so great about this book is the writing style. This is written in a very sort of almost stream of conscious kind of way, so you kind of just get sucked into these thoughts and habits of the two characters that you mainly follow and their like day-to-day life. And then some of the references to cultural, philosophical things were sometimes a bit contrived, and it was a little bit like too much at times, and I definitely didn't get all of them per se. This is definitely a book that sometimes you have to pull in Wikipedia or a dictionary or something just to make sense of what is being said here. But it's a book that is, despite the content being, perhaps it sounds quite heavy and a bit like overwhelming, it's written in such a way that it never is. And I think that it's a very well-balanced book. And it's just one that it had an ending that I definitely didn't see coming, and it's one that I really, really enjoyed reading. It was a very easy read, it was a very quick read, and it definitely was something different that I don't usually read all the time, and I like that in a book. I like it when a book can surprise me, and this definitely did that. And then my final read of January, and the reason why I didn't read anymore, is The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. Oh my, did I have a bit of a reading slump while reading this. Apart from the back problems, I started reading this the day I hurt my back and I was feeling semi-okay. And I thought, it's YA, I can breeze through this, and I can. It's a quick read. I don't really like the story. I do have to say that the second half of the book had a lot of redeeming qualities. The first half to me was very slow and very sort of YA tropes that we've seen over and over and over again that just had me going like for the first 200 pages. The main character you're following in this is Jude, and she is a mortal girl who lives with her mother and dad in a house, and one day a fae comes by and murders her parents, because what had happened, her mom had been his wife, she had a kid with him, kidnapped the kid to the human world, and he finally found her and came to get them. However, he does have a bit of honor, so he decides to also take the mortal children with him to fairy world, to the fae world, and raise them there. So Jude and her twin sister have been raised in this world together with their older sister, who's part fae. And she's grown up, and the Fae world is pretty much all she knows, and so the customs of the Fae world is what she knows. But for a mortal, they are very dangerous, and it can be like the difference between life or death very often, and she's sort of trying to find her way. She's going to school, and one of the people who is also at that school is one of the crown princes of the world of fairy, Prince Carden, and he seems to absolutely hate her. And she isn't exactly also an easy person. It's one of those stories that really starts with a main character that's quite stubborn, but somehow whoever is her main sort of love interest also loves her back, and you don't really get any reason for why. It has that. Plus it's very fae-centered, and this one was too. So I felt that a lot of the world building in this made it feel very much like this. And since I wasn't a huge fan of this anymore, that kind of had a bit of a setback here. I do have to say that once the story gets going, but I do have to say the story doesn't really get going until halfway through, around the 200-page mark, I felt that the story definitely took another direction that I enjoyed a lot more. This is the first book in a series. The second one, Wicked King, just came out, and I know I won't be reading this. I'm not invested enough in the characters to want to know how the story continues. I just want to leave it as is. This, again, suffers a little bit from the same things that this book suffers from, which means that it twists and turns for no reason. And it's just a way to keep the plot moving, but other than that, there's nothing much to it. So the characters, to me, felt quite flat. It didn't really, their motivations weren't very well explained. And for a book that's pretty much written from a first-person perspective, we don't also get a lot of insight into the main character either, I find. Because in the end, once you've read the whole thing, you're like, wait, what? That was your plan all along? So then why wasn't it written in these pages? Like, I don't know. It was a bit easy. So, and I find that a lot with YA, that sometimes the way the plot is unraveled towards the end, that it's a bit like taking shortcuts rather than something already being there in the book that sort of like hints at things that you can sort of like go like, oh, will it be this? Will it be that? With YA, just kind of like drops it like a bomb on top of you where you're like, oh, okay, that's what this book does. That's what these books all do as well. And I'm just not a really big fan of this, so I will not be continuing this series. I ended up enjoying it a lot more in the end than I thought because of the second half, because I love that, but I won't be continuing the series because I didn't love it enough. So those were the 3 books I read in the month of January. Like I said, I already am like 2/3 of the way through my first read of February by the time you're seeing this video, however. I hope to have read some more already, so definitely follow me on Goodreads because that's where I sort of update you on what I'm reading and I'm giving like the stars. I don't really do a lot of reviews on Goodreads because I just don't really see the point if I also make a video. I'm not, like, I don't want to do everything double all the time, you could say. So with that being said, I hope you enjoyed watching this video. Please give it a thumbs up if you liked it, and I would love for you to subscribe to my channel. You can click the red button down below. I will definitely be doing these kind of videos every month from now on, and yeah, without further ado, I hope you enjoyed watching the video. Have a great day. See you in my next one. Bye!